struggling with the news that Victor wanted to continue his college education and remain living at home with his parents. Her eyes welled with tears.
What about me, Victor? I'm your wife. What about us?
Victor stammered as Violet's tears turned to rage.
Answer me, Victor.
Victor took a long, deep breath, and then a big grin grew on his face. He looked lovingly into his wife's eyes.
Isn't it obvious? I want you with me. I want to introduce you to my friends and family, and for us to live together.
Violet was stunned.
Live with you in your home, not in my mansion?
Victor nodded.
That's right. I can't abandon my family, but I can't abandon you either, my love. So, what do you say?
Violet radiated joy. She wrapped her arms around Victor in a deep embrace. They laughed and kissed and shared a moment of pure celebration.
Yes, of course. I would love to live with you, my darling.
The next day, Victor walked towards his family home with Violet clinging to his arm. He gazed at her in wonder, still astounded by her beauty. He could hardly believe how quickly his life had changed.
Not only am I coming home with a new wife, but also a new body.
He was hit by a sudden wave of unease.
But how the hell am I going to explain this to my mom?
They passed by an office building and Victor caught a glance of himself in the reflective glass.
Not only have I grown 2 inches, but I'm much buffer. My skin is also paler. Though it's not like I was known for being out in the sun. So hopefully I won't attract too much attention from my parents. You checking yourself out, handsome?
Violet winked at him.
Can't say I blame you.
Victor blushed and studied Violet's sexy outfit. She was wearing a short black dress that expertly framed the curves of her perfect figure. She caught his wandering eye and returned a seductive smile.
Like what you see? According to Violet, my body is still developing. The vampire transformation forces the body to its peak state.
Victor checked his phone to see that it was 7 a.m.
Pretty early for a couple of vampires to be wandering around.
He noticed that Violet was in a very bubbly mood, treating their outing like an exciting adventure. If anything caught her eye, she stopped and approached it. If she saw anything interesting for sale, she bought it immediately, asking Kaguya, who was accompanying them, to carry it. As they walked, Kaguya shared details with Victor about her life, including that her family had long been dedicated to serving Violet's family. Kaguya was a vampire, but she only inherited immunity to the sun from the Snow family, and not their fire abilities. Instead, she had her own ability called Shadows. With this power, she could become one with the shadow as well as travel through shadows undetected. Kaguya paused the story of her life to complain.
Lady Violet, you're buying too many things. The thin arms of this helpless young woman can't take it. I wonder if there is a strapping young man available to help.
Kaguya faced Victor with a smirk. Victor smiled back.
You? Helpless?
Kaguya giggled and playfully batted his shoulder. Suddenly, Violet pulled Victor close.
I'm glad you're getting along with Kaguya.
She looked back at Kaguya over her shoulder.
Just don't get too close, okay?
Violet spoke with a cold stare. Victor was uncomfortable. He could see that it was just a simple warning, but could tell it contained something deeper. He noticed Kaguya looking nervous. Violet meant business. Victor calmed Violet, stroking her hair.
Let's keep walking. Help me think of ways to explain this whole vampire thing to my mom and dad.
Violet relaxed and nodded. Kaguya trailed behind them. Violet rubbed Victor's arm.
Darling, why don't you just charm your mother?
Victor raised an eyebrow.
Meaning? Just insist she doesn't notice anything out of the ordinary, and your influence will overpower her senses.
Victor sighed. He wasn't very comfortable with the idea of doing that to his family. The conversation was cut short by 2 cop cars careening past them. They were in hot pursuit of a speeding truck. Victor smelled something familiar.
This is a good opportunity to test my new senses.
He slid on a pair of cheap tinted sunglasses and activated his vampiric vision. His eyes turned red, but the cheap glasses concealed their bloodshot appearance. He focused his vision and looked at the fleeing truck.
I knew it.
He turned to Violet.
There's vampires in the back of that truck, nearly 20.
Violet was a little shocked.
You can see that far? Yes. Maybe those are Lucy's subordinates? I smelled the old vampire stench coming from the back of the truck.
Violet shrugged.
Lucy sure is drawing a lot of attention to himself. If he's not killed by the Inquisition, he might die by the claws of noble vampires.
Violet stopped suddenly outside of a toy shop. She stared at a giant stuffed bear in the window and rushed inside with an excited skip in her step. Victor smiled at the sight of Violet enjoying herself and then noticed Kaguya rolling her eyes at the thought of having to carry a kid's toy around in addition to all the other items Violet already purchased. He sidled up to her.
Kaguya, why would the nobles kill Lucy? Because he broke the rules.
Victor raised an eyebrow.
Which rule? Don't be a pompous dick?
Kaguya ignored the joke.
Rule number 4 of being a vampire is never reveal that you're a vampire to humans. Matters involving the vampire world should not be mixed with human affairs. This rule can only be ignored if the vampire is contacting a human with the intention of turning them into a vampire. If Lucy has broken this rule, he'll be hunted by the nobles and killed. After all, we don't like to draw too much attention to ourselves.
Violet returned carrying a big bear with a beaming smile on her face.
Sorry for the delay. I just had to have this. Isn't it adorable?
Victor caressed her cheek.
Pure adorable.
He took her by the hand.
Come on, we're almost there.
It was late morning by the time Victor, Violet, and Kaguya arrived at Victor's family home. Victor swung open the door.
Mom, I'm home, and I have a bit of a surprise for you.
He heard his mother's voice rounding the corner.
Victor? Why didn't you answer the phone? I was getting worried.
She trailed off as she saw him standing in the doorway with two beautiful women by his side.
Victor?
She approached slowly with a suspicious look on her face. Victor's mother was a lawyer whose clients had been politicians with checkered pasts. It wasn't the most noble of livelihoods, but they certainly paid her a lot. She viewed defending corrupt clients as a challenge, and she had a successful career until she got too involved with the wrong people and her life was put at risk. She now made less money and avoided taking on any well-connected clients. She cleared her throat as she studied her son.
You're paler than usual. Are you eating? It looks like you've grown too. Is that possible?
She placed her hand on Victor's head and tried to measure his height. He was previously only slightly taller than his mom, but now he towered over her. He stammered,
It's puberty, Mom. Puberty, huh?
She looked at Violet and Kaguya and her face suddenly lit up.
Oh my god, I see it now. These ladies made you a man.
Victor blushed as Violet and Kaguya chuckled. His mom turned back and shouted up the stairs.
Leon, get down here.
They heard Leon, Victor's dad, grumble from the other side of the house.
What is it, woman? I'm watching a movie.
His mom shouted back.
Our son lost his cherry and brought 2 beautiful girls home.
What? I'm on my way.
Sounding like an elephant leading a parade, his father raced down the steps. He reached the front door and stared at Violet and Kaguya, amazed. He turned to his son and gave him a proud nod.
My son, with 2 beautiful women. I was starting to worry that you would be a virgin forever.
Victor's dad was far too distracted by the beautiful women to take notice of Victor's change in physical appearance. Leon was a bricklayer who worked in construction. Even though he had long since retired, he still showed up at the job site every morning to give advice and throw his weight around. Victor gestured to his guests.
Mom, Dad, this is Kaguya, and this is Violet, my wife.
His parents' faces dropped, stunned. Victor's mother approached Violet and suddenly her expression changed.
Wait a second. I know exactly what you are.
Victor's mother, Anna, approached Violet with a stunned look on her face.
I know exactly what you are.
Victor gulped. His body tensed. Can my mom tell Violet is a vampire? Can she tell that I'm one too? And then his mother's shocked look blossomed into a beaming smile.
You're the gorgeous woman who's going to make a man out of my little baby boy.
She rushed in and hugged Violet, lifting her off the ground. Violet kicked her legs in the air and laughed nervously. Victor breathed a sigh of relief. Never have I been more thankful to be embarrassed by my mom. A few hours later, Victor, his dad, and Violet were lounging on a large brown couch in the living room. The house was cluttered but cozy. Kaguya sat behind them, holding the stuffed bear and all the other goods Violet got on her shopping spree. Victor tried to
process all the changes he'd experienced in just a few days' time. All of a sudden, I'm living a completely new life, but I still want my family to be a part of it. Ideally, I don't want to hide anything from them, but I know the vampire world isn't something ordinary humans can handle. Victor was torn. A life where I can't receive unsolicited advice from my overbearing mother or watch old movies with my opinionated father sounds miserable. He snapped out of the spiral. No use letting that get to me now. I need to focus on the present. Victor's mom approached from the kitchen with a tray full of hot tea and cookies. She was still beaming. So, Victor, you were saying that you've been in contact with Violet for many years and just recently started dating? Victor smiled. Sort of, but like I told you, we're not dating, Mom. We're married. Victor's dad nodded, a bit confused.
Well, we're mighty proud of you. But it does feel a bit quick, don't you think, kiddo?
Victor cleared his throat. Time to make this convincing. I know what you mean, Dad, but we've been dating online for about a year now. When we first met in person, it was love at first sight. We both knew we wanted to be with each other forever. Violet hugged Victor tightly. That's right. Victor's mother sighed. I just can't believe you've been seeing this girl for a whole year, and you only tell us about her now? I have so much I need to learn about her. Victor's mom swiveled to face Violet, flooding her with a barrage of questions. Victor tried to intervene, but it was futile. His dad slapped him on the knee with a big grin.
So, kiddo, have you two?
Victor blushed. Dad, come on! His dad laughed hysterically.
You know what I'm talking about. Penetration of the sacred cave, drowning the goose, letting the dragon drink the divine nectar, double cultivation. I can keep going.
Please don't.
No need to be ashamed. At the end of the day, sex is a perfectly healthy act.
Victor cringed. This is the worst conversation ever. Victor's mom heard what his dad was saying and flashed him a stern look. Stop embarrassing our son. Don't mess this up for him. Do you know how difficult it will be for him to get another woman like this? Victor shook his head. Thanks, Mom. His dad grumbled an apology. Victor's mom turned to face Victor with a serious look on her face. But have you? Victor scoffed. Are you serious right now? Did you forget what you said a few seconds ago? That thing about not embarrassing me? Violet brought her teacup down from her lips and placed it on the saucer. The answer is yes, we did. Victor's cheeks reddened. Oh my god, wow. His parents stared at him in disbelief with the biggest toothy grins he'd ever seen. His mom jumped out of her seat. Did you hear that, honey? They did it! We have to buy champagne! Victor's dad ran after her.
Wait for me. We'll need to buy fireworks, too.
Victor just sighed and shook his head. Victor and Violet looked at each other and then exploded in laughter. My parents are such weirdos. I'm sorry about them. Violet kissed his cheek. I love them. She frowned slightly. My mom and dad are miserable. They've spent so much time together they can't stand to see each other's faces. Victor started stroking her hair. She looked up at him with concern. We won't be like that, right? Victor noticed she was shaking. I don't know. I don't want to lie to her. I have no idea what marriage does to people. He took a deep breath. But I do know one thing. Relationships are a two-way street. If we put in the work, our love will survive. Violet was reassured. I don't think I'll ever regret turning you into a vampire, Victor. But there's one thing I will always regret. He narrowed his eyes. What is it? She squeezed his hand tight. I should have stopped those two bitches from being so close to that ritual. She spoke in a poisonous tone that carried a lot of hate. Victor was perplexed. Two bitches? What is she talking about? He turned to look at Kaguya, who had been silent this whole time. She just shook her head, indicating that her lips were sealed. What's going on? Victor looked back at Violet and saw a murderous expression on her face. Whatever is happening, I know one thing. If a woman is insecure, you must show confidence and let them know that everything will be fine. Some useful advice from my mother. Victor leaned in close. Don't worry, Violet. Our love will persevere. They leaned in for a passionate kiss. Victor assured her, don't worry about things you can't control. It will only cause you stress. She leaned her head against him. He stared off into the distance, still stuck on her comment about the ritual. What did she mean by 2 bitches? Did I bite more than one woman during the ritual? That seems unlikely. Maybe this has to do with that mystery woman standing with Violet at the grocery store. Victor racked his brain but came up empty. Whomever she's referring to must have done something to me while I was under that trance. He released the spiraling thoughts with a deep exhale. No use thinking about it too much. I'll just have to keep it in mind until I find out more. Besides, I have more important things to sort out. Later that day, Victor returned to his college campus with a new lease on life. After leaving his parents' house, he had called his boss at the donut shop and quit. He had a new money-making plan on his mind, and it was significantly more lucrative. No more donuts. I'm gonna rob thieves for a living. Victor was excited by his plan. He had superhuman strength and was ready to use it. Thieves are the perfect target. They steal from others, and then I'll steal from them. Although I will keep the money, so I'm not quite Robin Hood. He briefly considered an alternative plan. I could always use my vampire charm to bilk corrupt politicians out of their ill-gotten gains. But I think I'll avoid doing that for now. It will draw too much attention to me, and I don't want the ire of the Inquisition yet. Right now, I just need easy money. Fast. Everything else will be simpler once I know I've got some cash to lean on. Victor strolled through the wide-open campus. He wondered how Violet was doing. She had stayed back at the house. I hope Violet and my parents are getting along. He recalled the great challenge he had faced before leaving. Deleting his prized adult video. The hardest game in the world. He knew it was the right, mature thing to do. But it took a whole lot of willpower to click that delete button. I can't have Violet finding out about that folder, so it's bye-bye porn. As Victor walked toward his classroom, he noticed people looking at him differently. They had shocked looks on their faces and lingering stares. Do you know him? A woman whispered to her friend as he passed by. He looks familiar, but I can't quite place it. He looks hot. A grin spread across his face. Well, that's new. Victor approached the classroom, but stopped suddenly when he heard the sounds of a group playing basketball. I always loved basketball, but because of my disease, I could never play. Now, however, he watched the university team practicing. He admired their skills and then caught a whiff of a strange smell. Huh, what's that? He pulled his sunglasses out of his pocket and slipped them on. He activated his enhanced vision and his world turned red. He focused in on one of the players on the court. He had a red glowing mark on his neck. What the hell? Victor deactivated his vampiric vision and took off his glasses. There, to his stunned surprise, was his number one enemy and the captain of the basketball team, Luan Davis. Are you kidding me? Luan is a vampire?